parenting. We want to hear from you. We want to hear your feedback as much as we can. I was telling Fezi and Sarah that maybe they can help us plan something for the summer as an outing. We would love for us to build this community in St. Mary and St. Athanasius Church for you. So please, if you're not on the WhatsApp group, please see one of the servants to get on the WhatsApp group to find out about our meetings, and also to just give us your feedback and ideas on what would you like to see in the meeting. Okay. So we had, yes.
Sorry, just before you start, I was just wondering, is this meeting also for engaged couples? Like if we have friends that are engaged, should we let them know about the meeting?
Yes, please.
People who are headed towards marriage and young
Couple.
Yes, because we do cover topics on relationships, so couples are welcome to attend, and if you want to learn more and more about what marriage looks like, you'll find out about it here. So we're hoping that we can get to talk about everything in this meeting, and as you probably know from last year, we did talk about a lot of good topics that we felt like it was very relevant and current to our families. So today we decided, or for the beginning of the year, I shall say, because today is the first meeting, January is the first month of the year, so we decided that we want to start the year with a theme. So before I dive into the topic, I want to share with you the two themes that we chose. VMSA has the theme, the verse, only let your conduct be worthy of the gospel of Christ. And we felt it would be very relevant if Focus have something very similar theme, which is do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed from the renewing of your mind. By the renewing of your mind, then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. And as you can see, I highlighted the word conduct and transformed. We're hoping that we can focus this year on having it more practical, more focused on behavior and how we can transform our behavior. So we've had many, many years, thank God for the service that we talked and we dived into what the problems are, how to pinpoint them, but we want to be more and more practical this year and dive deeper into how we really can change our behavior and how we can be more able to now have it the year of the transformation of we can replace the negative with positive, replace one behavior versus another. And obviously we want to do that according to the will of God, according to the gospel of Christ. So you, as you all already aware, know that the service is mainly based on the foundation of the Bible and of Christ. So that's our main focus, our reference point, our conduct. This is where we aim to be and we look at is our Lord Jesus Christ. So why does this topic matter? Why do you think it matters so much that we focus on our conduct and be transformed in our behavior? Why does our behavior matter so much? Any take? Please.
I think something I learned recently is like your behaviors, like we have so much power. Our behaviors they have consequences, and our future is going to be according to what we're planting. Like they're seeds basically, and you're planting those seeds. So I'd say that it matters for that reason. If we don't make that connection between our behaviors and the fruit that we're going to reap, then we can be sowing things that we don't want, and we can really kind of go off track. So I think for that reason, it's so impactful on our spouses, our children, our families.
Absolutely.
It's a huge deal.
Yes, thank you. Absolutely. And sometimes they say, behavior speaks louder than words. We've been focused very much, again, in our topics before on becoming aware of our thoughts, becoming aware of our emotions. We know through, taking a psychological aspect of things that we're so much focused on thoughts and emotion, but then sometimes the behavior part, it kind of goes untalked about, or it's not as emphasized. And now what we want to do is actually, yes, as we recognize our thoughts and our emotions, it's the behavior that we want to change, because despite how we feel, despite what we think, it's what we put into action that matters. What we put into plan, it's what matters. So sometimes we can think something, we can feel something, but we can still choose to love. We can still choose to do the right thing, even though I may feel anger, I may feel resentment, or I may have not so good thoughts, but yet how I choose to conduct myself, that will be the real transformation. So we want to recognize that every relationship has a pattern, and that negative patterns can block connection and growth. So the pattern is what we do. You do something, I do something, I do something, you do something. So we have this cycle, or we have this pattern that is going on between couple. And as this pattern is happening, if it's a negative one, it can actually block us from connecting or having growth in our relationship. That's why it's so important to recognize that pattern. And you'd notice from other workshops that we've done in the past, we call them demon dialogues. They're like, it's almost like a demon. It's almost like a negative cycle that's between us that is actually impacting us to connect and grow as a couple. It matters because it can break us free, essential for a long-term connection. If we were able to conduct ourselves in a positive way and transform ourselves and be able to connect, we can have actually a long-lasting connection. So either we can block the connection or we can actually foster that connection. And God designed relationship for love and not strife. So God actually is designed for the relationship initially is for people to live in harmony together, for the couple to live in harmony together in a way that they're connected and they're actually growing together towards Him. So again, it does matter how we interact with each other. It does matter the pattern we have between each other, because either we can break each other or we can help each other grow. So what are the negative patterns? In your opinion, from your experience, what could be negative patterns in our marriage or in our relationship? And I don't want to pick on you, but I want us to interact together. So what could be a negative pattern that you notice? Any take? Ideas? No? Okay. So that's good that we're here so we can all learn about this together. Okay, so what is actually a negative pattern? What is a negative pattern? It's a repeated behavior or communication cycle that harm connection. So it's something that's repeated over and over again. And if we want to be smart about this, we have to pick up that pattern. We have to figure out what is the pattern that just keeps on repeating itself, and it's actually creating that sort of barrier, and it's breaking the communication and the connection. So there is something called, I'm sure you've heard of this, like I know this information, that's why I want to go through it quickly so we can get to the good part of how we go about it, but I'm sure you've heard about this criticism. So criticism, if I'm very critical with my partner, with my spouse, and I keep criticizing them every time we have a conversation, I'm very critical, I bash their personality or their traits, their character, I am very critical of what they do, that can definitely shut the person out, and then they no longer want to talk, they completely withdraw. And that's a pattern, right? I come into the conversation with criticism, my partner shuts down, he closes off, and then the conversation is over, and actually sometimes it can be completely not picked up again, and the conversation is done. So criticism versus encouragement, when I lift up my partner, my spouse, and I'm able to have some sort of an encouraging words versus always being critical, always being negative, that makes a huge difference in starting up a conversation or actually continuing a communication going. We have contempt versus respect. So contempt is actually when I belittle my partner, I belittle my spouse, and I put them down, I disrespect them. And sometimes it's done on purpose because I don't care anymore. Versus respecting each other, honoring each other, actually being able to see the good in each other. That's so important. Avoidance and stonewalling versus engagement. So, and I'll show you some examples of what would that look like when we stonewall, when we completely close off. And again, that's part of the pattern, right? If one is critical, the other one would completely stonewall or just create that sort of barrier. And it doesn't mean that they're not here, they just decided to completely close off. And of course, defensiveness versus understanding. So I want you to pay attention to these words because I'm going to show you an example, and I want you to be able to tell me what are those. Like you'll see it in the example, and I want you to tell me about them. So the cycle of negative patterns. So usually the cycle looks something like this. There's tension building, And then there's an incident of escalation, so there's a kaboom happens, and then there's a reconciliation. We come back eventually, and we find a way to say, I'm sorry, or we just pretend nothing happened. Life goes on. After a couple of days, we haven't been talking, so we just kind of come back and start talking. So this looks like some sort of reconciliation. And then there's a short-lived calm period, and then the tension builds up again, escalation again, and that's repeated on and on and on and on. Is that clear? Yeah? Okay. So why negative patterns persist? Why do you think it keeps on repeating?
Because it's not being broken.
Because they're not being broken, yes. Maybe it's not being recognized.
Or recognized.
We're not aware of them, yes. And we're not doing anything about it. What else? Why are they there to begin with? Like, why? We've been to, sorry, go ahead. Probably my behavior, yeah, is not changing. Yeah. So again, we have met each other, we were dating, we had a great time during the engagement, we got married, we went on a honeymoon. I chose this person to be with, I love them so much. And then we go home, and then all of a sudden, we can't stand each other. What? This is just the person that I just chose to be with. And then sometimes we notice from the first year or two, you're like, okay, what did I just do? Did I do a mistake here, or what's going on? Right? So we feel like there's this repeated behavior that's actually blocking us from having this sort of connection, and all of a sudden, it's not the same honeymoon phase anymore. And we wonder, why is this happening? So somebody said here, behavior, it's not recognized, we're not doing anything about it. So there is root causes to these negative patterns. And sometimes it's past experiences, sometimes it actually has nothing to do with the couple. Actually, it could be some things from our own upbringing, from our own experiences before getting married, before being together, that had us learn these sort of behavior of the way to respond. If somebody's to push a button, I usually respond this way. So if my spouse, because we're each other's, somebody had told me this analogy, and I really like it, we're each other's piano. So we press each other's buttons, right? We play this music, but sometimes the tune is not so good. So we push each other's buttons, and then all of a sudden, my spouse has this sort of anger or upset reaction. Right? And sometimes we're like, where did this come from? What did I just do? So sometimes it can come from things in our past that we're not aware of. And sometimes it could come from external pressure. Maybe nothing has to do with the relationship. It's actually something outside of us. Sometimes we see couple who are arguing about the in-laws and making deadlines, or making, where are we going to go? How are we going to do things? Financial stresses sometimes can add definitely a lot to that sort of pressure on the relationship, that we keep fighting the same fight over money. You're spending too much money. You're not watchful in your credit card statement. Every time I get the credit card statement, I get shocked, right? Fear of change or vulnerability. So sometimes, as somebody said here, sometimes we're too afraid to change, or too afraid to actually open up and share. Sometimes we don't know what to share. What am I supposed to share here? Yeah, he upset me, or she disrespected me, but I'm not sure how to put it into words. I don't want to steer the boat. I don't want things to, escalate even more, so I'd rather not say anything. But then we hold it in, and we don't share, we don't speak up about it, and then it builds up over time. Are we together so far? Okay, good. So how do we identify the negative patterns? Can we pinpoint them? So we want to learn how to spot them. We want to know that it's a reoccurring argument over and over again. So it's going to be very easy and very quickly that you'll be able to spot them, but we want to spot the pattern. And we want to know that there are feeling of disconnection. So as soon as we feel that sort of, we're disconnecting, we're actually not getting closer, we're actually falling apart. And something is, because it's reoccurring, we need to figure out, okay, something is not right. So we can't pretend that everything is okay when we feel something is not right. And avoidance and heightened conflict. We know that if there's avoidance and the conflict is escalating, there is something going on. So again, there's reoccurring conflict, there's avoidance, there's silent treatment, There's feeling of discomfort, there's argument back and forth, there's escalation most of the time. And usually when we get couple to come to therapy, they're usually at that breaking point. They're usually at that sort of escalation is almost now happening with every single topic, that they have stopped to know how to figure out how to navigate through conflict. Okay, so I want to show you this example, and this is the quiz time. So I want to see who was paying attention. So I want to show you this scene. I know probably some of you are familiar with it, and I'm going to try maybe to stop at, after a few minutes, that it's not too long, but maybe after a few seconds just to tell me what are they doing here.
That's all you're talking about?
I'm just saying it'd be nice if you did things that I asked. It would be even nicer if you did things without me having to ask you.
Well, I do seem to remember doing something for you this morning without you asking.
Gary, come on.
I'm
You know what?
serious.
No, I'm
serious.
serious. I really am. Come on, you knew I was working today and I made that meal, and you could have thought to yourself, you know what, you could have said, I think I'm going to get Brooke some flowers.
You said on our very first date that you don't like flowers, that they're a waste of money.
Every girl likes flowers, Gary.
You say that you don't like flowers. I'm supposed to take that to mean that you do like flowers?
No, this is not about, you're not getting it. You're not getting this, Gary. Okay, it's not about the lemons, it's not about the flowers, it's not about the dishes. It's just, how many times do I have to drop hints about the ballet?
You know I can't stay. Brooke, come here. We talked about
The dishes, to the lemon, to the ballet. Okay, so let's dissect this together. Let's process this together. What have we seen? يلا بقى كلنا بنتخانق يعني عادي يعني let's Christine, what do you think?
Cindy says we saw a fight.
We saw a fight, yes, definitely. But do you see how it escalated? Yes.
You know that slide that had this versus that? Do you mind bringing it back, or
Sure.
you want us to
Yeah.
try to work out from
Sure, yes. Okay. Which one would that be? Hold on.
Types, the different types.
Yeah, like
Okay.
I remember seeing a lot.
Yes, okay. Thank you. Hold on. Yes.
And I guess that's when the snowballing happened from her side, and then everything else happened. I guess all the check marks.
Yes, yes. What did you see? What did she do? What did Brooke do?
What?
Brooke, the lady, the girl, what did she do?
Yeah, so I feel like basically the stonewalling and being defensive after that. Just
Who was defensive?
the female.
The female,
yeah,
okay.
nasty.
Maybe she started by being critical.
She started.
She was critical of him, okay.
Yeah.
And
And
maybe contempt, maybe some disrespect.
That's it.
Yeah, he kind of deserved it.
If you
I don't know. No, not
It didn't
really.
look intense. No, I'm kidding.
No.
No, I'm with you.
What do you want to say,
I was
Christine?
gonna say, like, I even watching it, I'm not in it, but I feel like it's kind of hard to tell who messed up because she was expressing a need. I'm not sure how well she expressed it. I don't know. I can't remember. Sorry, my mind. Yeah. I mean, she was expressing a need, but he didn't show any curiosity. If she's that upset, something is wrong.
Yes.
So
Yes, and that, by the way, that scene, that the whole thing, that's the tension building has been building up throughout the day. So from the beginning of the day, they were planning a dinner. She asked him to get 12 lemonade because she wanted to do centerpieces. He got her only 3. And then from there, the tension started building. He started playing his game, taking his time to take a shower, and she was planning that dinner for the family. And then dinner is done, and then this is happening. Okay, so yeah, so the tension started building up from the beginning of the day.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. So they're just not like, I guess, like they're not on the same page.
They're not on the same page, yes. And there's a lot of stonewalling, or you can tell there's a lot of avoidance. They're avoiding
Right.
communication.
Right. They're not making like contact and stuff.
They're not, yes, they're not on the same page. They're not making contact. What else did we see? Did we see defensiveness? He was defending himself? Yeah. Yeah, and dismissing probably what she was feeling. How about her? What do you think about her?
A lot of contempt for sure.
A lot of contempt for sure, yes.
I think she has an important message to share, but I don't think, like, yeah, it's more like criticism. The way it's coming out is more criticism. It's almost like she needs to maybe sit down and think and work through it, and then maybe she has something important for them to address.
Yes.
Yeah, she's not giving him something he can
Yes.
work with. I think he feels attacked. It seems like.
Yes.
She probably got to this point because she's said it before many times in small increments, and this is her just exploding because she's had enough. So
Yes.
But sometimes we expect that the other person just understands, which is not fair because they're not in our minds or they don't know what we're feeling. So like, unless we coherently express what's actually bothering us, it leaves the person confused and they'll either shut down
Yes.
or they'll be defensive because they're like, why are you attacking me? Like, you
Yes.
know? So it's like, it obviously it's, you know, what came first, the chicken or the egg, but like, it's gotta stop somewhere. Like somebody's gotta realize what am I doing wrong?
Yes. And you can tell he was confused. Like he wasn't sure what she was asking for. What do you think she was asking for? She kept saying, I want you to want to do the dishes. I want you to.
It's like she wants to feel seen or like appreciated or helped, acknowledged.
she wants him to be present, maybe, like
Yeah.
be there.
Yes.
And want what you want, I guess.
Yeah, but that's difficult, right? That's where the unrealistic expectation can be like, yeah, that you want the other person to want what you want. And that's, I think, maybe where she was going wrong with this. Because she cared about the centerpieces, and you'll notice in other fights, like if you were to watch the movie, she loves decorating and painting, and he would, you know, again, there's a lot of contempt. He would completely dismiss what she does. So again, it's very hard to really care and want what the other want, but at least we can be on the same page as Christine was saying, or at least we can communicate that this is important to me. And we'll get to what we need to do about it, but I just wanted to, for you to start to become aware. Yes.
We see a lot of details for little chores here and there, but I don't really think it's about the chores or the details. I think it's about the emotion of what's happening inside. So I feel she is looking for help, support from him. But if she said, I just need to feel that you're helping me, you're supporting me, that's it. But I think because she was just saying little chores here and there, but she doesn't really care about the chore itself. She just want to feel that he's helping her, he's feeling for her, he's supporting her.
Yes. Yes, yes, thank you, Sahana. I think, yes, as others were saying, like, she wants to be seen by her husband. She wants to feel like she matters to him. And that's what's important. And you'll notice with Brooke as well, when you watch other scenes, like she's this sort of motherly type of person where she offers to do dinner and to make things look beautiful and to wash the dishes. And she insisted on washing the dishes before she goes. So she has a lot of motherly characteristics where sometimes we tend unwillingly or unknowingly, we tend to mother our husbands. And that becomes very dangerous. Because when we tend to do that, our husbands, they feel that sort of disrespect and contempt where it started to build between Brooke and her husband, right? Because you see him again, he's acting, he's on the video games playing, and she's the one that's taking care of things. And that's where again the roles are not being balanced out. Okay? So again, thank you for pointing out. Any other things you want to point out, or are we good to go? Abuna, yes.
How many of you attended Hold Me Tight?
One time we did.
9 out of 10 women, if not 10 out of 10 women. I'm just building on what Sahara just said. You've all said it, but you missed the word. Women want to regularly feel that they are cared for, because care towards them makes them feel they are valuable. And if they are valuable and cared for, therefore they are loved. Bottom line. So take everything we talked about right now, and you'll find, I don't know if you noticed how when she turned to him, she said, I don't like to leave dishes overnight or something like that. And then he said, and she said, I want you to clean up the dishes. And he said, but I don't want to. And she said, that's the problem, right? Again, even if you look into your own relationships, If a woman is valued, cared for, feels loved, she has so much energy to give, and she is very resilient. So you're looking at Brooke, is that Brooke?
Yes.
You're looking at Brooke after how many patterns, right? Of whatever these patterns, they had a meaning. They made some meaning for her, and that meaning was, do you really care about me? Am I valuable to you? Do you really love me? And I think this is building on what Sahar is saying, because it's not about the chores, it's about what that actually means to a woman. When we talk about men, it's a little bit different, but we'll see if Hanan will show us something for
You can
guys.
share, you can share.
But you have another.
I
clip?
have something else to show at the end, but
So
you can.
let's see.
Okay,
Maybe it will
sure.
come up again.
Okay. So if it does come up, we'll bring it up. But for men, definitely, they have this other need that they want to be respected. They want to feel that they're being a good provider and a good leader for the home. So again, when there's that contempt or disrespect, they feel that need is not being met. So I appreciate what Abuna said, because that's exactly what every woman would be looking for, is to feel seen, to feel valued, to feel loved by her spouse. And as Abuna said, it would give you that sort of energy that without much being said, as soon as this is being present in the relationship, you feel her just go. Right? So definitely when you see a woman thriving, it's because she feels loved at home, she feels safe at home, she feels that need is being met for her. So again, thank you for everyone that shared. So we want to share steps of how to break free of this sort of negative cycle. So there is a path to change. We want to, first of all, to be aware of the pattern. That's what I invite you all to start looking at your relationship and to start looking at the pattern that you may have going on in your relationship. I want us to slowly start opening up and speaking openly about this pattern. So again, it's not about the dishes, it's not about the lemon, it's not about the ballet, it's actually about feeling seen and being present in the relationship. And that's what we want to talk about. We want to slowly learn how to be able to share without the big tension and the big escalation happened. So again, the way Brooke, she was approaching it, she wasn't really being vulnerable. She wasn't really sharing. She was critical. She was loud. She was aggressive. And she did have a need, but that need was masked by all the other things that was going on with her. And we want to replace and choose healthier response. So we want to be aware what kind of response we have, the anger that we respond with, or the dismiss, or the judgment, or the defensiveness, and we want to change that. We want our response to be different. We want to invite curiosity, be open, be willing to listen, be just ask questions and slowly listen to what the other person is saying. And as Abuna said, we do train the couples in Prepare and Enrich and Grow, and Hold Me Tight. In these workshops, we learn what active listening is all about, how we listen to each other. And I know it can seem in the beginning, as we always say, can seem robotic or repetitive or seem not really genuine, but over time, if we really pay attention to the way we respond and we put some effort in it, it does make a difference in the conversation. And we want to be able to seek help when needed. So if we're not sure how to go about it, we are here as a community and we do these workshops really to figure this out together. But it's so important, first and foremost, is to recognize the pattern and how we are responding to this pattern. What's my role in this pattern? What am I doing? And to hold myself accountable to how am I responding and how am I contributing to this negative pattern. I want to know my triggers. So when I'm being triggered, it means something. And I want you to pay attention to this, because if I'm angry, it means something fundamentally that I'm ignoring about myself. If I'm actually feeling ashamed, or I'm jealous, or I'm being judgmental, there is something there that is fundamentally a need that I'm missing, and I'm actually not meeting it for myself. So it's not only my partner, I'm not meeting their needs, there's a need for me that I'm not meeting, and it starts with me, that I need to meet that need for me in order to be able to meet the needs of my spouse. So it's so important to know that my triggers, actually they mean something. So if I get angry and I can start to feel guilty or ashamed about being angry, maybe instead of feeling that, I can say, what does it mean? What is my anger telling me about me? And what do I need at that moment? And I can start to ask for that. I can meet it for myself, and I can ask my spouse to help me meet that need as well. So again, it's starting with examining ourselves and our own triggers. Okay, so I want also to share this with you because it's very important that we recognize when I get hurt, there's a like a narrative or like a thought that comes to mind that I say to myself. So first I can feel the emotion, I can feel the anger, I feel violated, I get upset, but then there's a thought that comes to mind. And the thought could be, people can be trusted, nobody is safe, I am always under attack. This could be a thought that comes to mind as soon as I feel violated, as soon as my partner hurt me. Or I can say to myself, if my partner if my partner isn't happy about something, that means they see me as a failure. And right away I jump into this, that I'm being seen by my partner as a failure. Therefore, am I a failure? Maybe I'm saying this about myself. Maybe I need to re-examine this. So it's so important to know the narrative, the thought that comes to mind, and the belief that I believe about myself that gets triggered. So remember when I was telling you we get poked, there's a button that gets pushed, that's the button that gets pushed. And I need to figure it out. So I need to really take some time for reflection, take some time with myself and ask myself, when this happened, and I'll show you how to go about it. We need to pause, take a step back, and self-reflect. What did I feel? What was I thinking? What's the belief? And how do I usually behave? How do I usually respond? And let me see if I can change that. So this is important. This is like a sort of an exercise. So if you all want to take a picture of this on your phone, this would be something that I want you to do when you get home. So first I want you to ask yourself, what happened? Why did it happen?
Mine, it's too small.
Oh, is
Do you
it?
mind if you were to send that
Sure.
PDF in the group so they have a better...
Sure, I'll do that. I'll send it as a PDF in the group. So we want to, first of all, know what happened. What was I thinking, or what came up to mind? What's the feeling? What am I feeling? And sometimes we talk about that in more details in our workshop, that there's something called secondary emotion and primary emotion. The secondary emotion is the anger. I get so angry, or I get very loud, I get frustrated. And then the primary emotion could be something else, that I could be scared, I could be disappointed, something else is going on, and I need to figure this out with myself. And then how do I respond? What do I usually do? And how I would like to respond at this point. So usually I react. Instead of reacting, I want to respond. Okay? So again, what happened, the thought, the feeling, and then the behavior. Okay? And this is where we need to change, is the behavior. So instead of yelling, instead of walking away, instead of slamming things, I can choose to do something different. And how do I do that? I want us to stop. So we're gonna stop, we're gonna pause. So as soon as we notice the negative pattern, let's stop. Okay, call it timeout. Sometimes we say, let's figure out a password or something. Let's break. And then we're gonna say, we're gonna take 30 minutes. We're gonna take, the evening and come back tomorrow. But we need to pause. But then we know that we're gonna come back. And then we wanna own the feeling. Say, this is what I feel. And then be able to share it eventually when we sit down and talk about it. So the pause is so important. The pause is very, very important, that we learn how to pause, how to walk away, but walk away in a safe way. Not in a way I'm slamming the door and I'm taking off, and then my partner or my spouse doesn't know where I'm going. No, I'm actually letting them know, okay, I'm not, like, right now we need to take a timeout. We're both escalated, we're both at a place where we can't talk. Let's take a break, and we'll come back and talk in 30 minutes or so. And then when we come back, let's be kind, let's be curious and ask, are you okay to talk right now? And if they're not, then we need to learn how to give them some more time, and then we can come back another time. Any questions so far? Yes, Peter?
Can we go back to the slide that had the triggers, I think?
Sure.
Not
This one?
The one.
Okay.
The one.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll share those, by the way, I'll share those sheets on the WhatsApp group.
Can you first one means?
Sure. So we can go through them. Anger, it tells us when the fundamental need is being ignored or dismissed. So if I'm angry, usually it's telling me I'm being violated. Something is injustice happening. Something not right. And that's why it's creating that anger in me. If I feel shame, it invites us to practice giving ourselves acceptance and love. So it could be something about ourselves that we feel ashamed about. And it's asking us, I would like to feel accepted and loved.
So usually each emotion that you feel is tied to something.
To a meaning, yes. And that's what Abuna was saying earlier. Like there's a meaning to what we feel. And that's so important. I know we can't figure it out right away, but if we take time, we can figure it out. And of course, there's help that we can, and resources that we can figure this out. But definitely when instead of bashing myself or feeling guilty about my feeling, it's actually trying to tell me something. Even anger, even the anxiety, this being scared, being fearful, it all has a meaning. And it's always inviting us to examine that meaning so that we can come back and be able to communicate that meaning so that we can actually connect, okay? Jealousy shows us what we want for ourselves, where we feel less than. Judgment or criticism of others shows us where we judge ourselves. Depression shows us that when our soul is not being nourished by living your life the way you would like it to. Overwhelm invites us to pause, release the things we do not need to do. Exhaustion invites us to put boundaries in to stop us from over-functioning, and dissociation tells us we're feeling unsafe, invites us to return to our body and ground it.
Do you mind sharing this along with the other one?
Absolutely.
And the slide after too is good.
Yes, I will share all of this on the group. Yes, for sure. Okay. Just what you appreciate about each other, and actually if you put these practices into place, it actually really does make a difference. Yes, Fedi?
And we're on a slide that says like it had steps, it's SOAR, I think.
Yes,
Is that after this or before this?
that's before. You want to see it again?
I think I just want to know what are the rest.
Okay, sure.
Sorry, my bad.
No worries. Okay, I think we're good with time. So stop. So you gotta pause. You gotta own the feelings. Okay, you gotta ask what you need, and then you wanna respond with kindness. Okay, so again, it's so important to stop or pause, figure out what's going on with me, and then ask what you need. So the next step is when we come back into the conversation, you ask what you need, and then you wanna respond to your spouse with kindness. So the practices that I want you to put into place, I want you to be able to practice gratitude with each other. So find things about each other, like even not just at the end of the day, but maybe throughout the day. Thank you for putting this away. I so appreciate that you did that. You do this so good. Thank you. Again, just having this sort of language and vocabulary in your day, it makes a huge difference, and it completely changes the atmosphere in the day. We want to be able to create rituals, either by weekly check-ins. People do that they weekly check in with each other, or they pray together. Again, that invites connection, it invites growth together. And there's a teamwork. So the idea is, instead of me and you, it's we versus the problem. So again, changing that sort of language that we are a team together. So we want to know that change is possible. We want to focus on progress, not perfection. So we're not looking for perfection here. Slow, steps in the right direction will make a huge difference. We want to rely on God for this transformation in our relationship. We want to remember that you're on this journey together, and that we do not conform to the world's way, but we want to be transformed by renewing our mind. So again, that's why we're here together, to keep renewing our mind every day of what can we do to transform our relationships? What can we do to transform even ourselves? So as you saw, it wasn't just about the relationship that we intended to talk about. We intended to talk even about ourselves. You want to start the change with you, to hold yourself accountable. So if your spouse is to come to you and tell you, you hurt me, you did this and that upset me, how do I respond to that? And I want to invite you also to reflect on that as yourselves. Like, what happens when you are told you actually hurt me? So it's not about, I got hurt, but also that sometimes we can be ourselves the people who hurt others. So we want to watch out for this. If I hurt my spouse, what can I do to make this different and to make it better for them, to create that safe space for them to be able to come and let me know what I did that they've upset them, and I can actually hold myself accountable and apologize and see how I can do this differently. Okay, so I have one more video to share with you.
Listen, this can only work when both of you are a safe place for each other to bring up a concern or a complaint or a desire to be loved in a new way and not feel like you're going to be dismissed or invalidated. Can we just all agree to do that for each other? I had to choose to become a safe place for Emily. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary if I wanted to revive our dead relationship. That means I started inviting and encouraging her to share what's on her heart, good, bad, or ugly. I wanted her to be honest with me about how she's feeling. I wanted to create a climate where I communicated to her, your feelings are more important than my discomfort. If she's feeling neglected or unappreciated in any area, I want her to feel safe to come to me about it. If you feel like giving your partner safety to bring up something that's important to them will only result in you being taken for granted, then you don't trust your partner. You just admitted there is an unhealthy dynamic in your relationship. This isn't about constantly complaining. Dr. John Gottman says that we should still have a 5-to-1 ratio in our relationship. That means 5 positive things, positive affirmations and appreciations and admirations, opposed to every negative one. Now, Emily decided she was going to bring up concerns or complaints in a calm, vulnerable, respectful way with no criticism or blame or accusations or passive aggressiveness. I decided to be on guard that I wasn't defaulting to defensiveness or dismissing her feelings or invalidating her experience. Instead, I make a conscious effort to really listen, to not interrupt, to hold space for her, to get curious about her feelings, understand her perspective, validate her, and take accountability and apologize for anything I believe I could have done better. And it's within that dynamic that we changed from having terrible fights with no resolution and the distance and disconnection only getting worse to now being able to have honest, transparent, mutually respectful conflicts. And that's what I so desperately want for you. It's possible, but it takes work from both of you, and it always centers around safety. So do you want to be a safe place for each other? Because saying the words is easy, but actually doing it is much harder.
Okay, so before we do the exercise, yes, I wanted to show one more slide, which I wanted to show what God's intention or God's design for male and female, right? It's God's intention for a male to be protector, to be provider, to lead, where a female is to nurture, to support, to receive, to be expressive, to process driven, to be soft. And again, that's really God's design. So sometimes when we go outside of that God's design, things don't work out. So it's so important to understand my role. What do I add to the relationship? What's so important and what God's intended for me as a wife and what God intended me for a husband. And as much as we can, if we can keep working on that sort of God's design, we create that sort of harmony together. So I just wanted to just point this out. And I wanted just to do a quick exercise. It's not going to take more than a minute. You can get your phones out in your notes. And I want you to write down one negative pattern you want to change and identify one action you will take this week to address it. So please, I want, yes, all of us to get your phones out. And on your notes, I want you to write this down. So I'll just give you 60 seconds to do that. Yes, please.
Do you want to give us like 2 minutes of what your advice would be, like how to break this at the earliest, the interaction that happened between them? So let's say if the man wants to take ownership and actually lead and actually break the cycle, what's the right way to start?
With the first scene that we saw,
Yeah,
that we saw,
yeah.
I think you can tell, as we said, the tension building and then the escalation.
Yeah.
So I think it's the timeout. I think this could keep going for hours,
Yeah.
right? And I'm sure we've been through this where the fight can go on
Correct.
for all night, pretty much, right? And it's, as you said, as you saw, it started off from the dishes to. And it would get into the families and what happened last year, and what happened when we were dating, and can go on, and then we end up saying really hurtful things to each other that we come to regret. So we have to break this. And I would say it's the pause. We have to learn how to pause. We have to learn that I'm at a point now, I'm yelling, I'm screaming, my heart is racing, we're breaking things, we're walking away, we're going in again, and this sort of back and forth, this has to be broken. We have to break free from it, literally break free from it. So I think once we recognize, and it's pretty obvious, that I think when we're in it, we just don't realize it, but hopefully a light switch can go off, something. Sometimes I tell couple, whether it's your body that would tell you, whether as soon as you start not being able to take a deep breath, once you started to talk fast, something's gotta tell you, something has to click to tell you, okay, now we're not going anywhere, nobody's listening, we're hurting each other, really we're losing the conversation at this point, so really we have to pause. In the pausing, when we go in separate rooms, that's the most important work where we need to figure out, it's not about playing this narrative on and on how much they've hurt me, whereas I need to examine that sheet that I told you, what happened, what just happened? What are my thoughts, what are my feelings, right? How would I like to respond in a way that actually shows connection, right? And I think really honestly, it's almost like a miracle. Sometimes I call it the miracle moment. Like I have another presentation that I usually do, it's called the miracle moment. It's really a moment in time, could be like 10 seconds to a minute, where you actually stop. And the conversation and the relationship can go this way or can go that way, right? So if you can catch that miracle moment and stop and take a pause and say to yourself, okay, what just happened? I want to respond differently because I care about my spouse. And I tell couple, you have invested into each other. This moment that you're in right now, this is not you. This is not us, right? This is us with the demon dialogue. But outside of that, we love each other, we care for each other, we have great moments, right? And this is the investment that we put into each other's bank, right? So it's so important that we go outside of that moment, and we can't go outside of it unless we calm down. So really, it's on us how to regulate, how to calm down, and it's not our spouse to regulate us, it's not our spouse to tell us calm down, because that will just get things even more. So don't tell your wife or your husband, oh, please calm down, because that's just gonna get them even more. You can let them know what you're doing is taking us nowhere. I'm gonna step away from this. And yes, Christine.
I want to repeat that back because I think it's so important what you just said. Like, it sounds like what happens is when there's a fight and an escalation, like you said something about like there's a tape in our mind and we could pause that song and put on a different song. Like, so it's what we tell ourselves about the fight and about what's happening. And sometimes we have a go-to song, and that's the go-to thing we tell ourselves, and we need to be able to pause and bring in a new narrative, bring in a new meaning for the situation. Like, oh, we're in our cycle again, or like something that's less negative.
Because that song that's being repeated, it's negative song. It's not really helping me.
Right.
And it's coming from my trigger, it's coming from past experience, it's coming from elsewhere.
Right. This always happens, or whatever
The song is, or the narrative is.
Yeah, something about your partner. Okay, I really like that. I was gonna say another suggestion to Fedi. I don't know what you think of this, but I would imagine too that it might be helpful to, like, if she wants to be seen, I'm just thinking out loud here, I think it might be helpful for him to say something like you said, pause, right? So maybe something like, I can see you're very upset, I'm very upset too, I think we should pause. But I think just saying something like, if someone's upset, just even labeling that, I can see you're very upset right now, I think that might have a de-escalating effect kind of thing.
Yeah, I think if we start, in my opinion, if you start pointing out what the other person is doing or feeling, you may actually get them even to escalate even more. Whereas if you say, I am upset right now, I can't talk right now, I would like to take a break, or I would like to step back, right? You're noticing your partner also, your spouse also is not well, you're both not well, but if let's try to use the I statement, like, I am not okay. Or I'm not gonna, so again, the person does something, I'm not responsible for what they're doing, I'm responsible for me. So when this happens, I will do this, right? So I think if I say I'm upset, I'm just gonna take a step back, I'll take a 10-minute walk, and then I'll come back when I'm able to talk.
So like
And
there's
that
a
will give them,
boundary. There's almost like a place for boundaries in this whole thing too,
Yes.
is kind of what you're saying. Like,
Yes.
Yeah.
Because you can tell that, Brooke and her husband, they were hurting each other, right? Like she was saying something, he was saying something. She was like, and it just kept going on and on and on. And to the point you'll see in the rest of the movie, they'll break up, right? With this sort of behavior, that's a prediction for breakup. That's not gonna work out, right? Because if this would repeat on and on, and it started to show to their friends and family. They didn't know when to stop fighting, and they kept hurting each other. So again, in continuing the conversation, we're actually hurting each other. We're hurting ourselves and we're hurting each other. So I think in knowing my boundaries, by the way, boundaries is my boundaries. Boundaries, it's not the other person, what they should do or not do for me. No, it's what am I gonna do if this person does this. So if they're gonna escalate or start screaming or calling me names, I'm walking away. That's my boundary. Okay? So hopefully that would be helpful, Eddie. So pause. Remember the word pause and walk away in a safe way. Right? Okay. Yes.
Just want to add a small point from Brooke and her husband.
I don't know his name. I'm sorry.
Gary.
Gary?
Yes.
Okay.
She wanted to be recognized. She did, as you said, she did a dinner. She did something. She cares about few things. And it seems like he doesn't.
It's this.
Like he sees that, but he's not like doesn't speak her language. So why shortly she says, "I want something direct," because the mind of men, I think, is just shortcut, not like sideway. She wants to tell him like, go like wash the dishes. As you said, it's not the dishes is the meaning.
Yes.
Just the care that he wants to help her.
Yes.
Okay, and he said, okay, later on. So why? She comes direct to him, not about the lemon, 12 and 3.
Yes.
So one thing I like that's direct point to the issue will help men more to understand what women come from.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And I think that's on me, that's on her, to learn how to do that, right? To be able to communicate. We're not, even though we talk a lot, doesn't mean that we are talking about the right things.
Yeah, she wants to tell him something, but with something else.
Yes.
So go direct to that
Yes.
point.
Yes, because sometimes it's because of what we were talking about. Why does it keep going? Because it's hard to share. I don't know what to share, and sometimes even if I know, it's hard to say. So I think the problem is, yes, to know what it is that I need, and yes, to come back and be able to say it in a calm way. Absolutely, yes. And vice versa. I think also the husband, he's ought also to express himself, and also in a calm and in a way that so that his wife can understand as well what is the need, what is the ask. And I find even sometimes husbands have a hard time also expressing themselves. So yes, I agree that sort of direct or honest way, but it's only can be done when we're calm. So that's why the pause is so important.
That's really good. I just wanted to ask you, how do you stop the conflict?
Yeah.
So tell me about times where you were actually successful at stopping and escalating conflicts.
I'm a very strong believer. It's like one of my main frameworks that I work with, that solutions are with people. But they have been caught in a negative pattern for too long that they forgot how to do things, but they've done it before. So I'm asking you, you're the experts now. How did you successfully, to some level, stop an escalating problem?
Here's the classic one, when you run out of energy.
So what do? You drop? Drop and hide. And which goes back to what Hanan was saying, you take a break, but this one is more like a heart attack type of
Energy, let's pick this up tomorrow.
and hopefully she was ready to let go of it at the time, right? So,
On either part, yeah.
Okay.
Party, yeah,
So so if you were asked the question, then what would be your advice? Something that from your experience, for you, it may not work for everybody else, but for you it works.
I think there's something that you said before that I always try to remember. Do I put it to practice? I don't know, but it resonates. If you want to de-escalate the situation, you need to tell the person that you see them or you hold them there. That was the word that you used, and just let them know that you see the problem. Like you have to give them something. You
Mm.
can't just stop it right there. Or be
Okay,
like,
so
I'm
can
done.
can I push a little bit
Yeah.
nicely and say, tell me, by starting to say, well, let me tell you, Abuna, one time I don't want, lovely that you remember something I said, but I want to know from you, I want to learn from you. How did you de-escalate a situation that was escalating? What have you experienced as solution to negative patterns?
Okay, we were fighting about something,
Mhm.
and it clicked what she's trying to say. Like I
Mm.